Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Sweet Girl. If you end up enjoying this review, then please consider joining my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed, and also consider subscribing if you end up enjoying the review. Alrighty then, shelling aside, let's get into this movie review. So, this is another movie that I just sort of came across. I didn't see any, trailers for this movie. It's just something I just came across when scrolling across the Netflix. Came across a movie called Sweet Girl featuring Jason Momoa. Yeah. So, this movie starts off with a lot of police moving to a situation that is occurring. We see a man on the roof, that man being Ray, played by Jason Momoa. As the police are getting near him, he proceeds to jump into the water. So, this is one of those things of, oh, this is going to be something later in the movie that we're going to sort of get back to. It's one of those types of beginnings. As we cut back years before, as we hear him narrate, Ray, aka Jason, narrate about what he plans to become with his wife and daughter. And as he's narrating about this, we learn an unfortunate circumstance that his wife has cancer. And in the meantime, he's trying to train his daughter to, I guess, either becomes a boxer or something around those, or just to protect herself. One of the two. Either way, he seems to do his own stuff. And as he's proceeding to look out for his wife in this condition, he gets news that this new medical procedure could potentially, or drug, I suppose I should call it, is potentially on the way. So he gets his hopes up, and she does as well. However, the next preceding day, apparently the doctor who told him this had to retell him, or now tell him the new news, is that the meds are now indeed not coming in, and in fact that these drugs will be delayed forever. So, being enraged by this, he checks the news, which the biggest convenience to set this movie up, taking place now. The company in question, Bioprime, run by some guy named Keeley, is giving an update. So, Ray makes a phone call to, as people are like calling in, asking questions about it, he proceeds to call and give a very direct threat to Keeley. And after the big threat, he sees that his wife is not doing so good, and then eventually passes away. And this is a big moment, as he's trying to gather himself, but he cannot. So he leaves the room, proceeds to just start breaking down, but he's trying to get away from people, so he's just trying to have a moment to himself. He eventually finds an empty hall and just has a big cry-out moment. And from that, we see 6 months pass. We see him trying to recover, doing his little boxing thing, so I'm guessing, again, trying to teach her how to box, or just, again, fight in general. And we hear him get a call. This guy named Martin has a scoop about this Bioprime and how they're in real deep, and how he could potentially get justice. So, the daughter, Rachel, follows him onto the bus, or is like following him to the train, I should say, not a bus. So she's like sneaking behind him, so they're pretty distant apart. As he's trying to gather more information about this whole conspiracy that is going down, and she's following him to see what's up. Unfortunate is that they are, or he is attacked, and then she is proceeded to be attacked. However, his condition is a lot worse. He gets attacked pretty badly. We see them both get knocked out from the preceding attack, and the train is empty, so I guess that is really relative to it taking place in the current time. Or pretty current, as trains have all become near irrelevant, I would say, in terms of people traveling. But when they get outside is when it gets a little bit odd, is no one is like checking in on them, or it doesn't seem like there is. So a little bit odd when they get outside, but you know. So anyways, we cut to another skippage of time. Another 24 months pass as we cut to her training, Rachel, training by herself, and we see that Bioprime, eventually through this process, apparently gets a deal all of a sudden, when they were being chewed out only the months prior, and now, again, in that prior news thing, and now they're getting this deal all of a sudden. So, she returns home to see Ray still wanting to find the truth. So, he he by himself, proceeding to go to this auction that he will be, this Keeley guy being attending. So he does this speech, and Ray goes in for a suspicious water spillage after setting up a way where he would know where Keeley would end up going. So, he continues this attack against Keeley once he reveals, and proceeds to kill the lot of them, Keeley and the men that were with him. So, as they sort of get out of that situation, they know he meets up with her, and they know that they are going to end up being followed. So she proceeds to call the police. Meanwhile, we see that Ray's making plans, covering up this entrance, preparing for future stuff, because he knows stuff is going to go down. Then we cut to these two gunned men that are going to make their approach. All the while, they're making their way to this hotel, or motel, or whichever it is. That being where Ray fights the two of them, one at a time, of course. And he eventually takes them both out. He takes their things, their equipment, as the FBI are slowly catching up and catching on to what is going on. Meanwhile, we cut back to the guy that attacked them initially on the train, and he's making his own moves, so he's still after them, all things considered. So, we see Ray looking over one of the phones of the guys, and the daughter, Rachel, goes in for a new call for the police, so she's trying to keep them up to date on what's going on. So, he wants to keep her safe, obviously. So he's trying to convince her to stay, but she, through her determination and just stubbornness a little bit, uh, he lets her in. And this is prompted a little bit more too by the female cop. I forget her name in the movie, but she's like trying to help her, Rachel. So yeah. So meanwhile, the two of them, they go to this large house and they're in this car. And we had seen him set some traps earlier, but he had set even further traps as we see these little tack things on the ground, take out some of the cars. They move the road signs so they go into an area that was off limits, and rams them into a truck. So they're currently like in a space where they can only back up. And then he proceeds to, once they leave the little tunnel area, hit them with a truck, leaving one vehicle left. And the other assassin guy, I'll just call him the main assassin, I suppose, on the opposing side of this tunnel, gunning them out, trying to gun out anyone, just clean house, essentially. So, they leave, the two of them, and, so he's like trying to give, trying to give chase. The hunter assassin guy manages to shoot out their wheels, and they make their way on foot proceedingly, Rachel and Ray. So they get a new vehicle eventually, and they meet right back up with the hunter, with the assassin. I guess they found the vehicle that he was using, and he sort of not passed them, but went down a different road. So they came across that. So now they're both in a restaurant together. All three of them are. And they all see the cops as well. They're there as well. So they have a moment to say what their situation is and the potential ways out of this situation. Either they tell the cops what is going on and everyone's going to get in trouble, or to allow them to proceed to the next location where, the number one person responsible for this, the top person responsible for this, would be given the location and giving them an opportunity, the hunter, another chance to hunt them down. So he gives them the location in Pittsburgh, and he says that the person responsible is indeed a senator. So someone big up in the leagues of who's running for, that. So, we cut back to the FBI lady, saying how she wants to protect this daughter. And we cut back to Ray, who's driving faster, in the vehicle when, they get caught in the helicopter lights. They're getting chased from up above. And we see him go off on foot. We don't really catch what she's up to, but we focus primarily on Ray. As we are catching up back to where the current thing where we saw at the beginning of the movie, them at a stadium, and him on the roof of it eventually. And as we catch up back to this, we see the policewoman try to reach this Ray, and then the veil is lifted, as it were. As it would turn out, she refers to the female FBI agent, says to her to say her name, which is a reference she made to Rachel earlier in the movie. So, it is revealed, as that happens, is that we do a cutaway, or whatever it's called, And it suddenly turns into Rachel standing there as she says her name. Um, as it replays back through all the events that took place with Jason Momoa's character Ray, from perspective up to when he got stabbed from the train, all up to where we are currently. So the scenario being that he actually died when they were attacked by that assassin. However, she couldn't grieve with that scenario, so she projected him through herself, as well as herself being. So she was like seeing herself, I guess. And the other self that she was seeing was the more innocent side, the side that was like, I don't want to, I want to get out of here. I want to do this, And the father version of her, the real, is what she was doing, which was getting her hands dirty, doing the killing, uh, and so on and so forth. So, so I thought that this was a pretty interesting thing, because I think, no, I could be wrong on this, but this is the first time, at least from my movie experience, where you get one of those, events that take place in the middle of a movie, and again, in the first time I can recall, this seems to be the first time where we catch up to that point, and it's actually not what happens, or it's not with who it is happening with, because we see in the beginning that it is indeed Jason Momoa's character. However, it is actually her the entire time. So I thought that was an interesting way to go about doing that, by, I guess it's a bit of a subversion, if you will. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting way to go about doing that. Anyways, we see her jump as she did in the beginning. Again, we saw him, but same thing. And she is proceeding to wanting to get to this final thing, the final person, the one at the top, the senator. So she's able to get out of the situation from the cops, obviously. But she's placed in the hospital truck from her jump. So what she does is attack the people in the hospital truck. I don't think she kills anyone. I forget if she, I don't know if she does kill them or just attack them very aggressively. It's one or the other. It's pretty bad. But her attack does cause the truck to flip over, so again, I'm not sure if that killed anyone or not. And she sort of goes off on her own. She sits on the bench, and then she, feels his presence, and she's, talking to him. And feeling alone, feeling that she is the only one going after this big power, this big senator power. As we cut to the speech with said Senator Morgan, and we see as Rachel is prepping up for her attack. She preps up her bag, which has her jacket and the knife weapon in it, so on and so forth. We also see that the assassin who already claimed that he was going to be here anyways, is indeed here and proceeds to try to attack her. They eventually clash into the water, into this fountain area, where the two of them fight, and he nearly chokes her out. But she can still hear her father's voice, and of course, the line delivered, the final line, I believe, from him is indeed "Sweet Girl," in obvious reference to the title of the movie. From there, she's able to regain consciousness just long enough to stab him out and get the kill after nearly drowning. So she makes her way to the senator and uses her knife as a big threatening tool. After when she was still on her own, she set up her phone in her back pocket and she set it to record. So we know this already. But the senator, of course, obviously does not, and she, through Rachel's, threatening aura, eventually confesses to what she was doing. So she kind of runs off, giving the senator a bit of an awkward pause of like, what the hell is that? And, oh man, I almost nearly died. But as Rachel makes her way out and has some distance, she makes a big update to the FBI, giving them the recording. And after the fact, she cleans herself up, and as I said, sends the FBI their recording. And thus, we hear a final narration that starts with him and then is taken over by her. And that is the end of the movie Sweet Girl. I thought that, outside of the pretty obvious conveniences earlier in the movie with the news just happening to be about the plot, outside of this, I thought that was a pretty effective movie. Jason Momoa gets to show off some of his acting chops, his ability to be emotive, which is something I didn't see at all in Aquaman, but, So, get to see a little bit more of his diversity within his acting here. And this is a very much a passing of the torch type of film contained within itself. How she is a very traumatized individual who sees her father through herself that much, and she also sees her own innocence tugging away at her. Again, saying to herself, I guess, is the best way I can put it, to get out of the situation, to just leave, to just end it, or, stuff along those lines. And it is through other things that transpire that keep driving her forward. So I thought that was a pretty interesting, again, way of handling as well the sort of fast forward within the, big portion of the movie, the big thing, the climax of the movie in the beginning, to sort of subvert that and be like, oh, but it's actually someone else completely. So I thought that was a bit of a unique take on that sort of typical setup. So yeah, interesting stuff. I thought that was quite enjoyable. So I think I'll give this movie like a 6 or a 7 out of 10, somewhere around there. Definitely a little bit more enjoyable. Again, outside of the early convenience leading to the plot happening, I thought that this was a pretty solid movie. So, if you want to definitely check it out, I'd say go for it. And if you ended up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Also, consider subscribing if you ended up enjoying this review. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.